Attachment is an invisible trap, a prison we build with our own hands, and we enter it willingly. In the quiet recesses of the human soul, where our deepest longings and fears reside, this truth reverberates like a clarion call to awaken. Our attachments, those cherished bonds we form with people, ideas, or even our own idealized selves, are not the bastions of love or fulfillment we imagine them to be. Instead, they are intricate illusions, woven from the threads of our unmet desires and buried insecurities. Today, we embark on a journey to explore the hidden architecture of our attachments, the shadows they cast, and the profound lessons imparted by Carl Jung, a visionary whose insights compel us to confront our inner darkness if we are ever to attain genuine freedom. From the outset, consider this. When we find ourselves entangled in a relationship or clinging to a person as if they were the very cornerstone of our identity, we are, in essence, surrendering a part of our power. We build a fortress around our vulnerabilities, mistakenly believing that the presence of another can fill the void within. Yet, what we often overlook is that the emptiness we seek to fill was never an external defect. It is a silent echo of our own inner absence, a reminder that true wholeness can only be found by integrating the fragmented parts of ourselves. Let us delve into the origins of this illusion. Jung taught that much of our psyche functions through the process of projection. We project onto others the qualities we refuse to acknowledge in ourselves: our fears, our unhealed wounds, our suppressed anger, and our unfulfilled dreams. In this way, the person we fall in love with becomes not a separate individual with their own complexities, but rather a mirror reflecting our inner desires and shadows. The romance is not with the actual person. It is with an idealized version of them, a phantom meticulously assembled from our deepest hopes and unresolved pain. Imagine a time when you felt incomplete, when the absence of someone seemed to echo the absence of a part of yourself. It is in these moments that the illusion of attachment reveals its true nature. The pain that follows a separation is not solely due to the physical absence of that person, but largely because we have lost the image of wholeness we had constructed around them. It is as though we have been deprived of a part of our own identity, a truth that is both liberating and terrifying. In acknowledging this, we come face to face with the realization that our suffering is not imposed by the world but originates from within us. The heartache is a dialogue between our conscious self and the unacknowledged parts of our soul. This internal dialogue often takes the form of a relentless narrative. We convince ourselves that without the other, we are diminished, that our capacity to love and be loved has been irreversibly impaired. The relationship, then, morphs into a crutch, a means to evade the existential dread of confronting our own solitude. The irony is stark. In our pursuit of completeness through external validation, we lose sight of the fact that every bit of completeness we seek is already embedded within us, waiting to be rediscovered. Jung's admonition reminds us that the true journey is inward, a courageous expedition into the recesses of our own psyche where the darkness and the light coalesce into the whole being. At the heart of this struggle lies the concept of the shadow. According to Jung, the shadow encompasses those parts of ourselves we deem unacceptable or too painful to acknowledge. In our haste to present a refined, idealized image to the world, we exile these disowned fragments into a dark corner of our mind. However, these shadows are not inert. They exert a powerful influence over our behavior, shaping our perceptions and dictating our emotional responses. When we become attached to someone, it is often our shadow that is at play, demanding that we see in them the qualities we refuse to see in ourselves. Thus, the relationship becomes a stage for the unending drama of self-deception, where the fear of facing our own imperfections leads us to cling desperately to the illusion of another's perfection. This is not to say that relationships are inherently flawed or that love itself is a mirage. Love, in its most authentic form, is a transformative force that can lead to healing and growth. However, when love is conditioned by the necessity to fill an internal void, it becomes tainted by dependency. The dependency is subtle, creeping into every aspect of our lives until the other person is no longer seen as a separate individual but as an indispensable extension of ourselves. The moment this illusion is shattered, when the relationship inevitably falters or when the other person inevitably changes, we are confronted with the disquieting truth that we have been living a lie. The grief that ensues is not merely the sorrow of a lost relationship, but the lament of a self that has been denied the chance to grow independently. Let us consider a narrative that encapsulates this struggle. A story of a man who built his entire existence around the presence of a woman he deemed his sole source of happiness and identity. In his mind, she was not merely a companion, but the embodiment of every virtue he admired and every promise of fulfillment he craved. For years, he lived in a blissful state of denial, dismissing any flaw or discordant note in the symphony of their union. His reality was a carefully curated illusion, a script written by his desperate need to believe that he was complete only because of her. But as time passed, the inevitable occurred. She departed. With her departure came not only the loss of her physical presence, but the shattering of the carefully constructed myth that had sustained him for so long. In the aftermath, he plunged into a darkness so profound that each day felt like an echo of his own despair. It was only when, in a moment of painful introspection, he revisited the diary of his early days, a diary filled with the raw, unfiltered reflections of his hopes and fears, that he realized the enormity of his self-deception. The woman he had idealized was not a flawless savior but a projection of his innermost yearning for wholeness. This revelation, as painful as it was liberating, marked the beginning of his arduous journey toward reclaiming his identity and embracing the fractured, yet authentic, self. As we contemplate these narratives, it becomes imperative to ask ourselves, what part of our suffering is real, and what part is the product of a mind ensnared in its own illusions? The first step toward liberation is the willingness to interrogate our own narratives. We must learn to distinguish between the authentic experiences that shape our emotional landscape and the fantasies that our psyche constructs to shield us from confronting our internal voids. It is a journey fraught with discomfort, a path that requires us to look unflinchingly at our fears of solitude, of inadequacy, and of the unknown depths within us. For many, this confrontation is daunting. It is easier to cling to a familiar illusion than to face the uncertainty of our own potential for growth. Yet, it is precisely in this brave confrontation that true healing begins. Consider the metaphor of a mirror. When we gaze into it, we often see only a superficial reflection, a facade carefully maintained to hide the scars and the struggles beneath. But if we were to shatter that mirror, piece by piece, we would be forced to confront the reality of our own fragmented identity. Each shard represents a part of us that has been neglected, a shadow that has been cast aside. The process of integrating these shards is neither quick nor painless, but it is essential if we are to move beyond the confines of our self-imposed prisons. As Jung so poignantly reminds us, to truly love another, we must first learn to love ourselves, embracing not only our strengths but also our vulnerabilities. In our modern world, the allure of external validation has never been stronger. Social media, with its endless parade of curated lives and filtered realities, tempts us to measure our worth by the number of likes and comments we receive. In this digital age, the boundaries between our true selves and the personas we project are increasingly blurred. We risk becoming prisoners of our own digital constructs, attaching our self-worth to fleeting moments of online approval. Yet, the wisdom of Jung cuts through this superficiality, urging us to return to a more profound understanding of identity. A journey that begins with self-reflection and culminates in the recognition that our true value lies not in the eyes of others, but in the acceptance of our own complex, multifaceted nature. To embark on this path of self-discovery is to embark on a quest for authenticity, a quest that demands courage, perseverance, and above all, honesty. It is to challenge the narratives we have constructed about ourselves, the stories that have been woven from our fears and desires. It is to acknowledge that the love we so desperately seek from others is, in truth, a reflection of the love we must cultivate within ourselves. And it is to understand that the pain of separation, though excruciating in its immediacy, is ultimately a call to awaken to a deeper, more enduring form of freedom. Throughout this exploration, we will encounter the many layers of the human experience, each layer a testament to our capacity for both suffering and transformation. We will delve into the nature of projection, examining how our unconscious tendencies shape our relationships and distort our perceptions of reality. We will scrutinize the role of the shadow in our lives, understanding how the denial of our darker aspects creates fissures in the foundation of our identity. And we will confront the ultimate question. How do we dismantle the illusions that bind us, and how do we reclaim the wholeness that has always been within us? This is not a journey for the faint of heart. It is a call to face the parts of ourselves that we have long kept hidden, to dismantle the false narratives that have defined our existence, and to embrace the messy, imperfect truth of who we really are. It is a journey that demands we let go of the familiar, even if it has been our refuge, and step into the unknown with a newfound sense of courage and clarity. It is a journey that requires us to trust in the possibility of transformation, even when the path ahead is shrouded in uncertainty. In the coming moments, I invite you to listen not only with your ears but with your heart. Let the words resonate deeply within you, for they speak to a universal truth, a truth that transcends time, culture, and circumstance. Whether you have experienced the agony of a love lost or the quiet despair of a life unfulfilled, know that you are not alone. The struggle to reconcile our inner selves with the images we project outward is a challenge that has been faced by countless souls throughout the ages. And in that shared struggle lies the seed of true connection, the potential to transform our pain into wisdom and our isolation into a profound sense of unity. As we stand at the threshold of this exploration, let us commit to the path of introspection and self-inquiry. Let us dare to question the stories we have been told about love, identity, and happiness. And above all, let us recognize that the power to shape our destiny lies not in the hands of fate or the actions of others, but within the depths of our own being. It is here, in the silent space between thought and feeling, in the interplay of light and shadow, that true transformation can take root. Over the next several minutes, we will peel back the layers of illusion that have long held us captive. We will learn to see our attachments for what they truly are, not as the source of our fulfillment, but as signposts pointing to the deeper truths that reside within us. We will examine the role of projection in our relationships, understanding that the qualities we admire or despise in others are often reflections of the qualities we have yet to acknowledge in ourselves. And we will explore practical steps to begin dismantling the patterns of dependency that prevent us from experiencing the fullness of our own being. This is the beginning of a profound journey, a journey that does not promise an easy path or a quick fix, but one that offers the possibility of lasting transformation. It is an invitation to look beyond the superficial trappings of modern love and to discover the deeper, more enduring source of happiness that lies within. As we navigate the complexities of our inner world, we will come to understand that the liberation we seek is not found in the external world, but in the courageous act of facing ourselves with unflinching honesty. In this first chapter of our exploration, we have laid the groundwork for what is to come. We have introduced the central paradox of attachment, that the very bonds we cling to for security are, in fact, the barriers that prevent us from experiencing true freedom. We have seen that our attachments are not merely a matter of external circumstances, but are deeply intertwined with the dynamics of our inner life, the interplay of light and shadow, desire and fear, self-deception and truth. As you listen to these words, I invite you to reflect on your own experiences. Consider the ways in which you may have sought to fill an inner void with the presence of another. Ask yourself, have you ever clung to a relationship not out of genuine love, but out of a desperate need to validate your own existence? Have you ever found yourself mourning not the loss of a person, but the shattering of an ideal that you had carefully constructed over time? In these moments of introspection, you may begin to see the subtle mechanisms at work. Mechanisms that have kept you confined within an invisible prison of your own making. The insights of Carl Jung remind us that our suffering is not an external imposition, but a call to awaken to the deeper dimensions of our being. The pain we experience when an attachment is severed is, in essence, the cry of a soul longing for integration, a plea for the parts of ourselves that have been neglected to come into the light. And while this pain may seem overwhelming at first, it is also the very catalyst for transformation. For in the process of confronting our inner shadows, we discover that the wholeness we have been searching for was never outside of us to begin with. It was always within, waiting patiently for the day when we would have the courage to reclaim it. As this introductory chapter draws to a close, let these reflections settle in your heart. Recognize that the journey ahead is not about denying the pain of attachment or dismissing the value of human connection. It is about transcending the illusions that have long held you captive and stepping into a space of true, unconditioned freedom. In embracing the totality of your being, the light and the darkness, you pave the way for a deeper, more authentic experience of life, one in which love is not a crutch but a celebration of the infinite potential that resides within you. This marks the end of the introduction, a prologue to the larger exploration of how our attachments, our shadows, and our projections shape our very existence. In the forthcoming sections, we will delve deeper into the mechanisms of projection, explore the transformative power of self-awareness, and uncover the practical steps to disentangle ourselves from the illusions that confine us. Stay with me as we continue this journey into the heart of what it means to be truly free. In the depths of our internal landscape, beyond the superficial narratives we so desperately cling to, lies a realm both mysterious and daunting, the realm of the shadow. As we journey further into our exploration of attachment and the illusions it creates, we must now confront the hidden aspects of our psyche, the parts we deny, dismiss, or simply fail to recognize. It is here, in this uncharted territory of our inner life, that the seeds of both suffering and profound transformation are sown. As we peel away the layers of conditioned belief and self-deception, the first truth we encounter is that every emotion, every longing for connection, carries with it the imprint of our unacknowledged self. Carl Jung famously stated that one does not become enlightened by imagining figures of light, but by making the darkness conscious. This powerful declaration urges us to brave the discomfort of our own inner darkness, to shine a light on the parts of us that we have long shunned. In doing so, we take the first courageous step toward reclaiming our wholeness. Consider, for a moment, the mechanism of projection, a process by which we attribute qualities, both admirable and despised, to those around us rather than acknowledging them as reflections of our own inner state. When we fall deeply in love or cling desperately to another, we are not simply embracing the other person as they are. Instead, we are embracing an ideal, a carefully constructed image that embodies our deepest wishes and our most fervent fears. This ideal is not found in the person themselves, but in the mirror of our own unrecognized traits. In essence, we fall in love with a reflection of our shadow. This shadow, the repository of all that we have rejected in ourselves, becomes the silent architect of our attachments. Every time we experience an overwhelming need for someone else's presence, it is the unintegrated parts of our being that are speaking. They cry out for recognition, for acceptance, and for the opportunity to be transformed. And yet, because these parts remain hidden in the recesses of our mind, our quest for love and validation is doomed to be fraught with disappointment and pain. Imagine a scenario where you admire in another the qualities you secretly deny in yourself. Perhaps you see in them the confidence or the compassion that you feel lacking in your own life. This admiration, however, is not a pure appreciation of their being. It is a projection, a mirage conjured by the yearning of your inner void. The person becomes an object of your desire, a vessel onto which you pour all the aspirations and insecurities that you have long repressed. And when the inevitable disillusionment occurs, when the idealized image begins to crumble in the light of reality, the pain you experience is not solely due to the loss of the other person, but the shattering of a fantasy you had built around them. This painful collapse is a call to look deeper. The agony that accompanies the dissolution of an attachment forces us to ask a critical question. What part of our suffering is truly born out of external loss, and what part is the echo of a deeper internal deficit? When we examine our grief, we often discover that it is not merely about the absence of another, but about the absence of a connection with ourselves. The loneliness we experience in the wake of a breakup, or the despair that follows a rejection, is a reflection of the unhealed wound within, a wound that has been hidden behind layers of idealization and denial. To understand this more clearly, we must return to the concept of individuation, the process by which we evolve into our true selves by integrating the various parts of our psyche, including the shadow. Individuation is not an easy path. It is one of confrontation, self-doubt, and profound introspection. It requires us to dismantle the very constructs that have provided us with a semblance of identity and security. Yet, it is only through this painstaking process that we can hope to achieve genuine wholeness. When we begin to acknowledge our imperfections and embrace our vulnerabilities, we create the space for a new kind of love, one that is self-sustaining, resilient, and free from the chains of projection. Let us delve deeper into the nature of this shadow. It is the collection of traits, impulses, and desires that we have deemed unacceptable, often because they conflict with the persona we strive to present to the world. In our modern society, where images of perfection and success are meticulously curated and broadcast, the shadow becomes an ever-growing repository of what we refuse to see. The more we deny these aspects of ourselves, the more potent they become, influencing our behavior in ways that are both subtle and profound. They shape our perceptions, color our emotions, and ultimately dictate how we relate to others. In relationships, this unrecognized self manifests as an unyielding expectation, a demand that the other person fulfill a role that we have, in fact, constructed in our own minds. The journey through the shadow is a journey towards self-acceptance. It calls for a radical honesty, a willingness to confront the aspects of our identity that we have long kept hidden. This process can be likened to clearing away the debris that has accumulated over years of neglect. With each discarded illusion, we move closer to the raw, unfiltered truth of who we are. And while this truth may be difficult to bear, it is also liberating. For when we embrace the totality of our being, we free ourselves from the perpetual cycle of craving and disappointment that characterizes attachment. As we continue this exploration, consider the role of memory and narrative in sustaining our attachments. Our minds are remarkable storytellers, weaving elaborate tales to explain and justify our emotions. Often, the stories we tell ourselves about love and loss are not accurate reflections of reality but are distorted by the filters of our desires and fears. We remember a relationship not as it truly was, but as we wish it had been, a tapestry of moments colored by the glow of idealization. When reality intrudes, when the imperfections and contradictions of the other person come into view, the dissonance between our internal narrative and external truth becomes unbearable. It is at this moment that the shadow reasserts itself, demanding recognition for the parts of us that have been silenced for too long. This is where the practice of self-inquiry becomes essential. To disentangle ourselves from the grip of attachment, we must question the veracity of our internal narratives. Ask yourself, what am I truly clinging to? Is it the person, or is it the idea of completeness that I have built around them? In this process of inquiry, we may discover that the image we have been chasing is nothing more than a ghost, a projection of the unfulfilled parts of our soul. By recognizing this, we begin to dismantle the illusion that our happiness depends solely on external validation. Instead, we shift our focus inward, toward the cultivation of an inner strength and resilience that no external circumstance can diminish. In the second chapter of our journey, we must also confront the societal factors that exacerbate our dependency on external validation. In an era dominated by digital connectivity, the temptation to equate self-worth with social approval is stronger than ever. The endless scroll of social media feeds bombards us with images of seemingly perfect lives, reinforcing the notion that our value is determined by likes, shares, and comments. This external validation, however, is ephemeral, a fleeting high that leaves us feeling even more isolated once it fades. It is a modern manifestation of an age-old trap, one that seduces us into believing that our completeness lies in the reflections of others rather than in the depths of our own soul. Yet, there is a path forward, a way to reclaim our inner authority and redefine our relationship with love and connection. This path begins with self-awareness. By turning our gaze inward and confronting the shadow, we begin to dismantle the narratives that have kept us captive. We start to see that the traits we so fervently admire in others are, in fact, the very qualities we have been denying within ourselves. The compassion, the strength, the vulnerability. All these aspects are already present within, waiting to be acknowledged and embraced. When we come to this realization, we free ourselves from the need to find external sources for our happiness. We understand that true love, the kind that is transformative and enduring, must first be directed inward. Let us illustrate this transformative journey with a story, a parable of sorts, that captures the essence of what it means to confront the shadow and reclaim one's true self. There was once a man who had long believed that his identity was inextricably tied to the presence of another. He had constructed his life around the idea that only through another's love could he feel whole. For years, he lived in a state of constant need, his every thought dominated by the longing for a love that would validate his very existence. But as fate would have it, the relationship eventually dissolved, leaving him bereft and adrift in a sea of sorrow. For a long time, he wallowed in the despair of what he had lost, unable to see that the true loss was not of a person, but of an illusion, a fabricated image of completeness that he had clung to so desperately. In the solitude of his suffering, he began to question the foundations of his identity. He started to wonder whether the qualities he had so admired in his former partner were not, in fact, qualities he had been denying in himself. In the quiet moments of introspection, he discovered that the strength, the kindness, and even the vulnerability he had once projected onto another were reflections of an inner light he had long ignored. This realization was both shattering and liberating. It forced him to confront the painful truth that his happiness had always depended on an external source, a dependence that had left him powerless in the face of loss. And so, with great determination, he embarked on the arduous journey of self-discovery, seeking to integrate the disowned parts of his being and to cultivate a love that was unconditional and self-sustaining. The process was neither swift nor simple. There were days when the weight of his past, the intensity of his regrets, and the lingering echo of self-doubt threatened to pull him back into the old patterns of attachment. But with each passing day, as he delved deeper into his own soul, he began to see that the pain was not a punishment but a teacher, a guide pointing him toward the uncharted territories of his inner world. He learned to observe his thoughts without judgment, to recognize the subtle signals of projection, and to honor the parts of himself that had been buried beneath layers of fear and shame. In time, the man discovered that the love he had been searching for in another was, in fact, the love he could cultivate within himself. This journey of self-integration, of turning the gaze inward to confront the shadow, is at the very heart of transforming our relationship with attachment. It requires us to question everything we have taken for granted about love, identity, and happiness. It asks us to dismantle the narratives that have defined our existence for so long and to build anew on the solid foundation of self-awareness and self-compassion. As we begin to acknowledge our own fragmented nature, we unlock the potential for a more authentic, resilient form of love, one that does not depend on the ephemeral validation of others, but on the enduring acceptance of our own imperfect, beautiful self. In this phase of our exploration, the task before us is to cultivate a practice of self-reflection that can gradually dissolve the rigid boundaries between the self we present to the world and the self that remains hidden in the shadows. This involves embracing the discomfort of our vulnerabilities, listening to the quiet voice within that speaks of longing and loss, and recognizing that every moment of pain carries with it the promise of growth. The work is painstaking and unyielding, yet it is also profoundly rewarding. For every moment spent facing the darkness within, there is the potential to discover a new facet of our inner light, a quality that, once integrated, enriches our experience of life and deepens our capacity for love. As you listen to these words, allow yourself to be present with the sensations that arise. Notice the subtle shifts in your heart, the quiet stirring of memories long repressed, and the tentative glimmers of self-recognition. This is the work of dismantling the illusion of attachment, a process that does not promise immediate relief but offers the possibility of a deeper, more lasting transformation. With every honest inquiry into the nature of your desires and every act of courage in acknowledging your hidden self, you are taking a step toward liberation, a step away from the dependency that has kept you captive, and toward a life defined not by external validation, but by the intrinsic worth that resides within you. There is a timeless wisdom in understanding that every relationship, every bond we form, is but a reflection of our inner state. When we recognize that the source of our suffering lies not in the absence of another, but in the absence of self-acceptance, we begin to see that the true journey is one of reclamation. It is a quest to rediscover the parts of ourselves that have been lost in the maze of projection and idealization, to reclaim the authentic self that lies beneath the veneer of societal expectations and personal delusions. This journey is not for the faint of heart. It demands that we face our innermost fears, that we listen to the painful truths we have long tried to ignore, and that we find the courage to rebuild our identity on our own terms. In this crucible of self-discovery, the illusions of attachment are melted away, revealing the raw, unadorned essence of who we truly are. And it is in this unvarnished state, vulnerable yet powerful, that we begin to understand that true love is not something we receive from others, but something we nurture within ourselves. In the coming hours of our dialogue, we will delve further into the practical aspects of this transformative process. We will examine techniques for recognizing when projection is at work, learn methods to deconstruct the narratives that have held us captive, and explore the practices that can guide us toward a state of self-acceptance and inner peace. Each technique, each moment of reflection, will serve as a stepping stone on the path to inner freedom, a path that ultimately leads to a life where attachment no longer defines us, and where the light of our own authenticity shines forth unimpeded. As we close this chapter of our exploration, take a moment to reflect on the insights shared here. Consider the ways in which the shadow has influenced your own relationships and the ways you may have clung to external sources of validation. Recognize that every step you take toward acknowledging and integrating these hidden aspects of your being is a step toward liberation. The pain of the past, the sorrow of unfulfilled attachments, and the longing for completeness, all of these experiences are not meant to burden you, but to guide you. They are the signposts on the journey inward, markers that point the way toward the reclamation of your true self. The unfolding of this inner journey is gradual and filled with moments of both despair and hope. Yet, as you persist, you will begin to perceive that every hardship has been a lesson, every tear a catalyst for growth. The process of confronting the shadow is not about erasing pain, but about transforming it, allowing its energy to fuel a deeper understanding of who you are and what you are capable of. And in this transformation, you will discover that the true source of love, fulfillment, and security is not found in the ephemeral presence of another, but in the unwavering acceptance of your own soul. Remember that the path of self-integration is not linear. There will be times when the weight of old patterns resurfaces, when the pull of familiar attachments seems almost irresistible. In these moments, remind yourself of the insights you have gained, the knowledge that every external dependency is merely a reflection of an internal void waiting to be healed. Trust in your ability to confront the darkness and to bring light to even the most neglected corners of your being. As this segment of our journey draws to a close, I invite you to carry these reflections with you. Let them serve as a reminder that every moment of pain holds within it the possibility of awakening, and every experience of attachment is an invitation to look deeper into the mysteries of your own heart. The transformation begins when you decide to no longer run from the shadow, but to stand in its midst and allow its lessons to guide you to a higher state of consciousness. Only then will you discover that the love you have been chasing was never outside of you. It was always within, patiently waiting for you to claim it. In the quiet aftermath of our earlier revelations, as the layers of projection and shadow begin to peel away, we find ourselves face to face with the core of our emotional vulnerability, the fear of being alone. This fear, deeply embedded in our psyche, is both a silent saboteur and the catalyst for our most painful attachments. It is the hidden engine that drives us to seek validation and safety in the presence of another, even when such reliance blinds us to the possibility of inner wholeness. In this third chapter, we embark on an intimate exploration of that fear, a journey that requires the utmost bravery, vulnerability, and self-compassion. The fear of solitude is not a modern affliction. It is as ancient as the human experience itself. From the moment we take our first breath, we are wired for connection. The infant's cry for comfort, the longing for a warm embrace, these early experiences shape our understanding of love and belonging. Yet, as we mature, the very connection that once provided solace transforms into a crutch, a dependency born of the terror that without another, we might confront the raw and unfiltered essence of our own being. This terror is not merely about physical isolation. It is about the confrontation with our inner self, with the parts of our soul that have long been relegated to the shadows of denial. Imagine, for a moment, standing at the precipice of your own inner darkness. The idea of solitude, stripped of any comforting illusions, can be daunting. It is in that space, void of external distractions and the constant chatter of validation, that the unadorned truth of our existence emerges. Here, in the stillness, we encounter our deepest insecurities, the remnants of childhood wounds, and the echo of voices that once told us we were not enough. The fear of being alone, then, is not the fear of loneliness as society often portrays it. It is the fear of facing the unhealed scars and unmet needs that we have long concealed behind layers of distraction and dependency. In our relationships, we often cling to the idea that another person can fill the void within us, a void that, in truth, was never empty but misrecognized. We are seduced by the notion that love is the panacea for all our internal deficiencies, that the presence of another can mask the pain of self-rejection. However, when we allow ourselves to become dependent on external sources for our sense of worth, we inadvertently surrender our power. We become prisoners of our own making, shackled by the belief that without the other's approval or affection, we are incomplete. This internal dynamic can be likened to a mirage in a desert. At first, the promise of relief from the scorching loneliness seems within reach, a shimmering oasis that beckons with the promise of sustenance. Yet, as one approaches, the illusion dissipates, revealing that the true source of nourishment must come from within. The realization is both harsh and liberating. The quality we seek in another has always resided in our own core, waiting to be recognized and nurtured. It is only when we reclaim our inner authority that the fear of solitude begins to lose its grip, allowing us to step into a space of genuine independence. The journey toward overcoming this fear is neither linear nor instantaneous. It requires a sustained commitment to self-exploration, a willingness to sit with discomfort, to examine the narratives that have long justified our dependency. One of the most powerful tools in this endeavor is self-inquiry. By turning our gaze inward and asking the difficult questions, we begin to dismantle the illusions that have held us captive. We ask ourselves, do I truly fear being alone, or do I fear what I might discover if I am? Is my need for another's presence a reflection of an unmet need within, or is it simply a habit, a conditioned response to past wounds? These questions are not easily answered. They demand honesty and courage, as they compel us to face parts of ourselves that we have long avoided. In the depths of our introspection, we might uncover memories of rejection, of feeling unworthy, or of being abandoned when we were most vulnerable. Such revelations can be painful, yet they also provide the roadmap for healing. For every instance of fear that we acknowledge, there is an opportunity to reframe our narrative, to recognize that the pain we have experienced does not define us, but is a stepping stone toward a more authentic and empowered self. A crucial aspect of this transformation lies in recognizing that solitude, when embraced, is not the enemy but the crucible in which our true selves are forged. There is a paradox here. In the very act of facing our solitude, we discover a reservoir of strength and creativity. When we learn to be alone, we are not abandoning the possibility of connection. Rather, we are cultivating a sense of inner fulfillment that makes external relationships more enriching and less dependent. This is the essence of true individuation, a process by which we become whole by integrating all facets of our being, even those that seem most painful or unloving. Consider the story of a woman who, for many years, equated her self-worth with the presence of a partner. In every relationship, she sought validation and comfort, believing that her identity was inextricably linked to the affection she received. When her partner eventually left, the void that was left behind was overwhelming. In the aftermath, she was forced to confront the stark reality. The love she had depended upon was a reflection of her own fear of being alone. Through the slow and arduous process of self-reflection, she began to understand that her true value was not contingent on another's presence, but was inherent in the entirety of her being. As she learned to embrace her solitude, she discovered that it was not a barren landscape of isolation but a fertile ground for self-discovery and growth. This process of reclaiming oneself from the clutches of dependency involves several stages. Initially, it requires the recognition of the patterns that have dictated our behavior. We must acknowledge that our attachments, however passionate or desperate they may seem, are often responses to an internal call for validation, a call that is best answered from within. Next, we cultivate self-compassion, an essential ingredient in the healing process. By treating ourselves with the same kindness and understanding that we would offer a dear friend, we begin to mend the fractures that have long undermined our sense of self-worth. Finally, we embark on the practice of mindful solitude, spending time in quiet reflection, free from the distractions of the external world, to reconnect with the core of our being. Mindful solitude is not about isolating oneself from others or denying the joy of shared experiences. Instead, it is an invitation to become comfortable in one's own company, to savor the richness of inner life without the constant need for external affirmation. In this state of being, we learn to listen to the subtle whispers of our soul, to recognize the hidden desires and aspirations that have been overshadowed by the demands of everyday life. It is in these quiet moments that the truth of our identity begins to surface, revealing the vast reservoir of potential that lies beneath the surface of conditioned existence. As we continue to navigate this path, we may encounter resistance. The familiar patterns of dependency and the allure of external validation have a way of creeping back into our lives, tempting us to revert to old habits. During such moments, it is imperative to remember that transformation is not a destination but a continuous process, a series of small, deliberate choices that gradually shift the landscape of our inner world. Each time we choose to sit with our discomfort, each time we question the narrative that tells us we are incomplete without another, we chip away at the foundation of our dependency. Over time, these seemingly insignificant acts accumulate, paving the way for a profound and lasting change in the way we relate to ourselves and to others. One of the most challenging aspects of this journey is the confrontation with our own limitations. To truly overcome the fear of solitude, we must be willing to face the parts of ourselves that we have long deemed unworthy or unlovable. This process often involves revisiting painful memories and acknowledging the impact of past experiences on our present behavior. It is not an easy task. There is a natural human tendency to resist what feels too raw or too real. Yet, it is precisely in this space of vulnerability that growth occurs. When we allow ourselves to feel the full spectrum of our emotions, without judgment or suppression, we open the door to healing and self-acceptance. At its core, the fear of being alone is a manifestation of our struggle with self-acceptance. We have been conditioned to seek external sources of validation, to look for mirrors in the faces of others that reflect back a semblance of worthiness. But this external reflection is inherently unstable. It shifts with circumstances, with the ebb and flow of relationships, and ultimately leaves us feeling empty when it fades. The challenge, then, is to cultivate an internal mirror, a source of steady, unwavering validation that arises from within. This internal mirror is nurtured through practices such as mindfulness, meditation, and the honest confrontation of our inner narratives. It is a gradual process, one that demands patience and persistence, yet its rewards are immeasurable. For when we learn to see ourselves as whole and complete, we liberate ourselves from the perpetual cycle of seeking approval and validation from others. In this phase of our exploration, we also confront the societal narratives that reinforce our fear of solitude. Modern culture, with its relentless emphasis on social connectivity and the glorification of romantic relationships, often portrays solitude as a void to be filled, rather than a space of possibility. We are bombarded with messages that equate happiness with perpetual togetherness, that suggest our worth is measured by the number of relationships we cultivate. Yet, this external narrative is a relatively recent development in the long arc of human history. In earlier times, Solitude was not seen as a deficiency but as an opportunity for introspection, creativity, and spiritual growth. The great philosophers, poets, and mystics of the past often sought solace in solitude, finding in it a wellspring of insight and inspiration. By reclaiming this perspective, we can begin to see that being alone is not a state of lack but one of potential. An opportunity to dive deep into the reservoir of our own wisdom and discover facets of ourselves that remain hidden in the noise of everyday life. The challenge, therefore, is to reframe our understanding of solitude. Instead of viewing it as a void to be feared, we can begin to see it as a sacred space, a canvas upon which we can paint the authentic portrait of our inner world. In this reimagined landscape, solitude is not synonymous with isolation but with self-discovery and renewal. It is in these moments of unadulterated quiet that we learn to differentiate between the transient need for external validation and the enduring wellspring of self-worth that lies at our core. As you listen to these words, I invite you to reflect on your own experiences with solitude. Recall the times when you felt the sting of abandonment or the nagging fear that without another, you would be lost. Now, imagine the possibility that these feelings, however painful, are not signs of weakness but invitations to explore the depths of your own resilience. Each moment of discomfort, each tear shed in the quiet of the night, is a testament to your humanity, a call to rise above the limitations imposed by old patterns and to embrace the vast, untapped potential that lies within you. The journey of confronting the hidden fear behind attachment is one of gradual illumination. It is a path that winds through the labyrinth of our memories, through the echoes of past wounds and the residue of long-held beliefs. Yet, with each step we take, we reclaim a piece of our true self, one that has been waiting, patiently and persistently, for the courage to emerge. In this unfolding narrative, the pain of dependency transforms into the fertile ground of self-empowerment, and the fear of solitude gives way to the realization that you are enough, exactly as you are. There is a profound beauty in the act of embracing our solitude. It is an act of defiance against the pervasive notion that our worth is measured by our connections with others. In the quiet, unadorned moments of being alone, we find the space to breathe, to reflect, and ultimately, to regenerate our spirit. It is in these moments that the voice of our inner wisdom grows louder, guiding us toward the truth that our completeness does not hinge on external validation, but on the quiet assurance that comes from within. As this chapter draws to a close, consider the transformative power of facing your fear of being alone. Recognize that the journey is not about renouncing the value of relationships, but about rebalancing the scales, finding harmony between the love we share with others and the love we must cultivate for ourselves. In embracing solitude, you reclaim the power to define your own identity, free from the constraints of dependency and the illusions of external fulfillment. The road ahead will undoubtedly present challenges. There will be moments when the old patterns resurface, when the temptation to seek refuge in another's presence feels almost irresistible. In these moments, remember that every step you take toward self-reliance is an act of liberation, a declaration that you are the master of your own destiny. Each time you choose to sit with your discomfort, each time you question the narrative that tells you are incomplete without someone else, you are affirming your inherent worth and sowing the seeds of lasting transformation. This is the essence of the journey we have undertaken, a journey of confronting the hidden fear that lies at the heart of attachment. It is a journey marked not by the absence of love, but by the presence of a deeper, more abiding form of love, one that emanates from the core of your being and endures long after the fleeting affections of others have faded. It is a love that celebrates your uniqueness, honors your vulnerabilities, and recognizes that the truest form of fulfillment arises not from the validation of another, but from the quiet confidence of knowing who you are. In these moments of self-realization, you may find that the fear of being alone begins to dissipate, replaced by a sense of peace and acceptance. The inner sanctuary you cultivate becomes a place of refuge, a wellspring of strength from which you draw the courage to face the world with renewed vigor. And as you continue on this path, you may come to understand that the solitude you once dreaded is, in fact, the very soil from which the most vibrant aspects of your soul can emerge. In the quiet aftermath of our deep explorations into the nature of attachment, projection, and the haunting fear of solitude, we now arrive at a pivotal juncture in our journey, a moment when reflection meets action. This segment is not merely a continuation of our inner dialogue. It is a call to engage in practical work, to dismantle the long-held illusions that have kept us tethered to a cycle of dependency, and to embrace the authentic self that has always dwelled within us. Here, we delve into the methods, techniques, and mindful practices that will empower you to break free from the invisible chains of attachment and cultivate a life defined by inner resilience and self-acceptance. For years, Many of us have carried the weight of expectations and unfulfilled needs. We have sought validation in the eyes of others, constructing intricate narratives that equate love with dependency. Yet, every step on this journey of self-discovery has revealed a simple, yet profound truth. The power to transform our lives rests not in external approval, but in the courage to look within and embrace every facet of our being. This part of our dialogue is dedicated to equipping you with tangible strategies to make that shift. A transition from seeking completeness in another to nurturing the abundant wellspring that is your own authentic self. The first essential tool in this transformation is the practice of self-reflection. Self-reflection is more than a momentary glance at our thoughts. It is an ongoing, deliberate process of inquiry into the beliefs, feelings, and experiences that shape our emotional landscape. Begin by setting aside dedicated time each day, perhaps at dawn or in the stillness of the night, when you can sit in quiet solitude, free from distractions. In this sacred space, allow your mind to wander through the corridors of memory. Ask yourself the hard questions. What am I truly seeking in my relationships? Which of my attachments are born from a genuine desire to connect, and which are manifestations of a deeper fear of being alone? This introspection is not meant to generate more questions than answers, but rather to peel away the layers of narrative that have obscured your inner truth. Journaling is an invaluable companion on this path. There is a remarkable power in the written word, a power to externalize the often overwhelming internal dialogue that defines our emotional experiences. As you write, do not worry about form or perfection. Let your thoughts spill onto the page in raw, unfiltered honesty. Over time, the patterns within your writing will begin to emerge. You might notice recurring themes, moments when you felt the sting of abandonment, episodes of overwhelming longing, or times when the specter of self-doubt loomed large. Each of these moments is a clue, a signpost pointing toward the areas in your psyche that have yet to receive the light of acknowledgement. With every word, every sentence, you are dismantling the narratives of dependency and rewriting the script of your life in a language of empowerment and self-compassion. Another transformative practice is mindfulness meditation. In the practice of mindfulness, you learn to observe your thoughts and feelings without judgment, creating a space where the chatter of the mind can settle into a quiet clarity. Sit comfortably in a quiet corner, close your eyes, and take deep, deliberate breaths. Focus on the sensation of the air filling your lungs, on the rhythm of your heartbeat. As thoughts arise, perhaps memories of past attachments or echoes of the fear of solitude, acknowledge them with gentle curiosity and let them pass, like clouds drifting across a vast, serene sky. Over time, you will discover that this practice cultivates an inner calm, a steady presence that allows you to face the complexities of your emotional world without being overwhelmed. Mindfulness teaches you that you are not your thoughts. You are the observer, the constant amidst the ever-changing landscape of emotions. A related practice that can deepen your understanding of the self is the art of meditation journaling. After a meditation session, spend a few minutes writing about your experience. Note any insights, any recurring images, or feelings that surfaced during your practice. This dual approach, meditation followed by reflective writing, acts as a bridge between the quiet awareness cultivated in meditation and the active process of self-inquiry. It allows you to track your progress over time and see how the shadows of old attachments gradually recede as you grow more rooted in your own presence. As you become more attuned to your inner landscape, another essential tool emerges: the cultivation of self-compassion. Self-compassion is the practice of treating yourself with the same kindness, care, and understanding that you would offer to a cherished friend. Too often, our internal dialogue is harsh and unforgiving, a constant stream of self-criticism that reinforces feelings of inadequacy. Recognize that the pain of attachment, the sorrow of perceived abandonment, and the fear of solitude are not indictments of your worth. They are, instead, messages from a wounded part of your soul that longs to be healed. When you catch yourself in the grip of self-judgment, pause and place your hand over your heart. In that simple gesture, remind yourself that you are deserving of kindness and that every struggle is an invitation to grow. Affirmations can be a powerful ally in this process. Simple statements such as, "I am enough," "I deserve love," starting with my own, and "every experience is an opportunity for growth," can gradually reshape your internal dialogue from one of scarcity to one of abundance. In addition to these internal practices, engaging with supportive communities can significantly enhance your journey toward authentic living. Seek out spaces, whether in person or online, where you can share your experiences and listen to the stories of others. True transformation rarely happens in isolation. It is nourished by connection, understanding, and shared vulnerability. In these communities, you will find fellow travelers who, like you, are on a quest to break free from the chains of dependency and to embrace the fullness of their humanity. These connections, grounded in genuine empathy rather than in superficial validation, can provide a rich tapestry of support and inspiration. Remember, the goal is not to seek out others to fill a void, but to engage in mutual growth, where each individual is both a teacher and a student in the art of self-love. As you immerse yourself in these practices, it is crucial to set realistic expectations. Transformation is not a destination reached overnight. It is a journey marked by incremental shifts, moments of profound clarity interspersed with periods of uncertainty. There will be days when the old patterns reassert themselves, when the allure of external validation seems too potent to resist. In these moments, remind yourself that every step, no matter how small, contributes to the larger mosaic of your evolution. Celebrate the tiny victories. The moment you choose a reflective pause instead of a reactive impulse, the time you offer yourself a kind word in the midst of self-criticism, the instance you turn to your journal when the weight of attachment feels overwhelming. Each of these moments is a testament to your commitment to living authentically, to reclaiming the power that has always resided within you. One of the most profound tools for transformation is the art of reframing, changing the narrative that has long dictated your experience of attachment. Often, we view the end of a relationship or the experience of loss as a failure, a confirmation of our unworthiness. Yet, what if we could see these moments through a different lens? What if we could reframe them as opportunities for growth, as catalysts that propel us toward a more resilient and authentic self? Begin to ask yourself, what lessons does this experience hold? How might the pain be pointing me toward an unhealed part of myself that needs attention? In reframing your perspective, you shift from a stance of victimhood to one of empowerment. Each setback becomes a stepping stone, a crucial part of the tapestry of your life that adds depth, texture, and meaning. The process of reframing does not deny the pain. Rather, it transforms the pain into a source of insight, turning what once felt like a burden into a beacon of personal evolution. A key aspect of reframing involves revisiting your memories with new eyes. Consider the stories you tell yourself about your past relationships and your experiences of loneliness. Often, these narratives are colored by regret and self-blame. However, when viewed through the lens of growth, each experience becomes a chapter in your story of resilience. Write down these memories and then, on a separate page, list the lessons learned from each experience. Over time, you will see that what once felt like an insurmountable loss was actually a rich source of wisdom, a necessary phase in the evolution of your authentic self. In doing so, you reclaim your narrative, asserting that you are not defined by your attachments or your losses, but by the courage with which you embrace life in all its complexity. In the realm of practical transformation, creative expression is another powerful avenue to explore. Whether through writing, art, music, or dance, creative endeavors provide a means to externalize and process the intricate emotions associated with attachment and identity. Allow yourself to create without judgment or expectation. Simply let the creative flow guide you. Perhaps you will write a poem about the duality of love and loss, or paint a canvas that captures the interplay of light and shadow within your soul. The act of creation is, in many ways, a dialogue with the self, a means of bridging the gap between the conscious and the unconscious, and of giving voice to the parts of you that have long remained silent. Through creative expression, you may discover facets of your identity that were hidden beneath layers of conditioned behavior, paving the way for a more integrated and vibrant existence. It is also important to acknowledge that while these tools and practices are immensely valuable, they are not a substitute for professional support when needed. The journey toward healing can sometimes unearth deeply buried wounds, and it is essential to recognize when the guidance of a trained therapist or counselor may be necessary. Embracing professional help is not a sign of weakness, but a courageous step toward reclaiming your inner power. A skilled therapist can offer new perspectives, gentle challenges, and a safe space for you to process the most painful aspects of your experience. Remember that seeking help is a testament to your commitment to self-care and your desire to live a life of authenticity and emotional well-being. As you continue on this transformative path, consider establishing a daily ritual that integrates these practices into the fabric of your life. This ritual might include a period of meditation followed by journaling, a walk in nature where you allow your thoughts to wander, or even a quiet moment of reflection before the day begins. The key is consistency, a regular practice that grounds you in the present moment and reinforces your connection to the inner self. Over time, these rituals become anchors, reminders of the commitment you have made to yourself, and the promise of a life lived authentically, free from the tyranny of external validation. In reflecting on the journey that has brought you here, it is essential to honor the progress you have made. Transformation is not a linear path, and each step, whether forward or backward, is part of the intricate dance of growth. There may be moments when the old wounds reopen, when the familiar pull of attachment seems irresistible. In those moments, draw upon the practices you have cultivated, return to your journal, immerse yourself in mindfulness, and reach out to those who share your vision of a more authentic life. Each time you choose to face your pain with courage, you fortify the foundation upon which your true self is built. Let your journey be a testament to the power of transformation. Imagine the countless individuals who, like you, have once been prisoners of their own attachments, confined by the illusions of dependency. Now, envision yourself as a beacon of resilience and authenticity, having transcended the limitations of the past to embrace a future filled with promise and self-determination. Every act of self-reflection, every moment of mindfulness, and every creative expression is a declaration of independence, a bold affirmation that you are no longer defined by the external forces that once held sway over your life. This final segment of our dialogue is an invitation, a call to action that implores you to step into the fullness of your being with unwavering courage. Embrace the tools and practices we have explored here not as mere techniques, but as integral components of a transformative lifestyle. Allow them to guide you as you continue to dismantle the invisible barriers of attachment and reconstruct a life that is rich with purpose, authenticity, and inner strength. As we draw this extensive exploration to a close, I invite you to reflect on the words we have shared, the insights that have emerged from the depths of introspection, the practices that have illuminated the path to self-discovery, and the narratives that have been reframed into stories of resilience. This is not the end of your journey, but a significant milestone on a lifelong quest for inner freedom and self-empowerment. The process of transformation is ongoing, a dynamic interplay of learning, unlearning, and relearning that continues to shape the ever-evolving tapestry of your life. Remember, the journey toward authenticity is uniquely yours. It is a path that winds through the complexities of emotion and the intricacies of the human experience, and it is marked by both triumph and struggle. There will be days when the echoes of past attachments seem to resurface with unrelenting force, and moments when the comfort of old patterns beckons you back. In these times, hold fast to the practices you have nurtured, the insights you have gained, and the unwavering truth that you are the architect of your own destiny. You are not defined by the attachments you once clung to, nor are you diminished by the losses you have endured. You are a dynamic, evolving being, endowed with the capacity for endless growth and renewal. Embrace this truth as you move forward. Let it be the light that guides you through the darkest of nights, and the steady drumbeat that affirms your worth with every step you take. The power to transform your life, to dismantle the illusions of dependency, and to forge a path of authentic living, lies within you. It is a power that is both ancient and timeless, a gift waiting to be claimed by those brave enough to look within and to trust in their own inner light. In closing, I offer you these final reflections. May you find solace in solitude, strength in vulnerability, and an ever-deepening connection with the true essence of your being. Let the insights of our journey remind you that the love you so desperately sought in others has always been present within you, waiting to be acknowledged and nurtured. As you continue to apply these practical tools, journaling, meditation, self-reflection, creative expression, and the cultivation of self-compassion, may you discover that the path to liberation is paved with small, intentional choices that cumulatively transform your reality. The journey toward dismantling attachment and embracing authenticity is a lifelong endeavor, one that requires patience, persistence, and above all, an unwavering commitment to honor every facet of who you are. Stand tall in the knowledge that each moment of self-inquiry, every act of mindful presence, and each burst of creative expression is a victory, a triumph over the illusions of the past and a step toward a future that is unequivocally your own. As you close this chapter and prepare to embark on the next stage of your personal evolution, carry these words with you as a reminder of your inherent power. You are the author of your own story, and every day offers a fresh page on which to inscribe the narrative of your true self, a narrative that is marked not by the pain of past attachments, but by the radiant promise of self-realization and boundless possibility. May your journey be filled with insight, courage, and the gentle assurance that the light within you is unshakable. And as you continue to walk this path of transformation, may you come to see that the most profound form of love is the love you nurture for yourself, the love that empowers you to live fully, authentically, and with unwavering hope. This is the culmination of our exploration, a comprehensive map of the inner terrain that has long been obscured by the illusions of attachment and dependency. It is a testament to the resilience of the human spirit and a celebration of the boundless potential that lies in embracing our authentic self. As you step forward, remember that every challenge is an opportunity, every shadow a guide, and every moment of solitude a doorway to the inexhaustible reservoir of your inner strength. Thank you for embarking on this journey with me, a journey of discovery, healing, and transformation. May the practical tools and insights shared here serve as a constant reminder that you are the master of your destiny, and that true freedom is found not in the approval of others, but in the deep, abiding acceptance of who you are. Embrace this truth with open arms, and let it guide you toward a life of authenticity, purpose, and endless possibility.